Hey guys. So today I'm going to talk about the importance of honesty within our interactions with others. Now, this video is going to be especially good for those of you who maybe feel anxious or scared to tell others what you're thinking or feeling. So let's dive in. So, to begin to understand why honesty is the best policy, I want to kind of look at this through an energetic lens. Now, if we're feeling scared in some way to be honest with others, then that's sort of our body and our emotions signaling to us that something's maybe out of alignment within us. And it's kind of calling for our attention, right? And these sort of emotions that arise are opportunities for us to, heal and grow and begin to transform these old energies that maybe don't align with our spirit within, right? And so we can either choose to listen to what's going on in our experience and in our actions with others, or we can choose to ignore it or continue to ignore it if that's what we've been doing. So I'm going to give two kind of maybe concepts sort of underlying these, and one has to do with our intentions and one has to do with our words. So let's go ahead and talk about the first one. And this is that clear intentions equals clear energy. So, what do I mean by this? Now, when we are not honest with other people, we sort of, I think of it as sort of muddying the waters, right? We're stirring things up. We can't see clearly. So perhaps the person that we're interacting with doesn't have a clear view of what we're trying to say to them or what our motivation is behind what we're saying. And a lot of times I find when we're not honest with people, it's because we're trying to either manipulate a situation or manipulate a person, whether it be their feelings or their perceptions. So, white lies would kind of fall into this category, right? We don't tell the full honest truth because we either don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or we want somebody to agree with us or we want to agree with them so we're not like sort of stirring the pot or all these things. Like we have this underlying intention of manipulation. That's really what is underneath that. And so that's not a clear heart-centered intention, right? So it muddies the water, it muddies the relationship, and it creates tension whether we see it or not or feel it or not. If we tune into our body and what we're sensing as we're doing this, we might begin to sort of feel there might be a sense of pressure. For me, when this is occurring in my own life, I feel a sort of sense of tightness or pressure in my chest, and I might feel my heart start to race a little bit, or I feel this sort of almost like a pulling sensation coming from within me, and that sort of signals to me that the energy's not clear right now. There's something's not sort of jiving right. Now, the other thing with not being honest with others is that to be dishonest with others, and dishonesty can mean either A, lying, or B, not telling the whole truth, right? Withholding information is a form of dishonesty as well. So when we're dishonest with other people in some way, shape, or form, it really requires us to be dishonest with ourselves, right? Um, we're not saying what's on our heart or our mind, or we're withholding something. Like it's almost like we're holding this thing bottled up inside of us. And do we really want to treat ourselves that way? Do we really want to be dishonest with ourselves? And, energetically, it can take a toll, right? It's very draining and it can sort of, that sensation I spoke about in my chest, that's blocked energy right there, right? It's our body telling us, hey, this isn't flowing, this isn't going right. So what are we going to do about it? Okay. So I'm going to sort of wrap up this particular concept with a personal story. And this actually happened the other day. I find when I pick a topic for a video, sometimes these things might arise in my own life if it's, something that I really need to be looking at within myself at a deeper level, right? And, I've really worked hard over the years to begin to clear some of this fear of being open and honest with people but we can always go at a deeper level, right? So this happened to me the other day, and I was at my mom's house, and I was doing a woodworking project with my stepdad, and the neighbor came running over the house in a panic, and she was like, do you smell smoke? Do you smell smoke? And I was like, well, we've been in here working in the wood shop, and all I can smell is wood right now. So, let me come outside and see. And she was very panicking. She's like, it's coming from this house. And, you need to tell me you smell it. I called the police, and I just need you. I need somebody else to verify that they can smell the smoke. And, I go over there, and I mean, it's been really hot and dry here. So there's, a lot of dust stirred up. And I'm like, well, thinking to myself, well, looks maybe a little bit hazy. And, I don't know. She seems really scared that this house is on fire. This is what I'm thinking in my mind. And so my response, I kid you not, was, well, maybe, because I didn't want to tell her no. And I'm not saying it's her fault because her panic sort of, triggered me in some way. But, I have parts of me that have difficulty staying grounded in my own honest truth when other people are stirred up, right? So the universe was presenting me with this opportunity, this teacher in my life, to say, hey, we still got a little bit of work to do here. In these moments of panic, we want to, learn how to stay grounded in what our truth is, right? What is honest for us. So, when we're responding to people, maybe is not usually the best answer, right? And so after I said maybe, this is where the tables kind of turned a little bit. She goes, well, good. Okay, you need to tell them when they get here that you can smell it, because I know that they're cooking crack in that house. They're cooking up cocaine. And, the police really need to do something about this. I was like, oh God, what did I just do? What did I just get myself involved in here? Then transpired this whole thing where the cops came, and I sort of had to be like, okay, I don't really, I said that, but I don't really smell anything. And, if I'd just been honest from the get-go, then it probably would have went a lot more smoothly. So that being said, really good lesson in just being clear and honest with people. I mean, we always have these opportunities in our life, and to really work through these things at deeper levels. And we don't want to be holding on to any shame or blame within us. It's okay for us to make mistakes in those moments. And, if we have that reflection after the fact, it's just as valuable as in the moment, in my opinion, because we're actually bringing our awareness to it. So, if this happens to you too, where you find yourself getting into these situations, then, it's okay. Be okay with it, because it's going to be okay. That's how we learn, and how we process, and how we get clearer intentions, right? And become more honest in our interactions with others. So the second one here is right words equals right alignment. So what do I mean by that? Well, I don't mean right words like you have to say everything eloquently or something like that. It's not even about that, right? It's about using our words to say what's on our heart and what's on our mind, right? So if we're not feeling something, we're not feeling okay with something, then we speak up and we say it, that doesn't really resonate with me, or no thank you, or sure, yeah, that sounds great, whatever way it sways for you. And as we are honest and with other people, then the right people start to sort of filter into our life, right? If we lie about liking something that we don't really like, then we're going to be hanging out with people that maybe don't have the same interests as us or the same values, right? That's important too, values. And we're just going to be surrounded in that. And we're going to constantly be in these situations where we're being dishonest with ourselves, right? With ourselves. This is ultimately about what's going on inside of us and it reflecting in our external environment, right? And, this isn't about just, having everybody who shares our same opinions on everything around us, right? Everybody's going to have different nuances of things or different opinions. It's about being honest with people without having expectations or pushing our agenda on them, right? because we're all here to learn. We're all here to sort of be our own person. And no matter what somebody believes, even if we don't agree with it, right, or we don't feel like it's right, we allow them to, the space to, live in whatever reality they want to choose, right? As long as there's no imminent harm for us, of course, then we allow that, and we let it go, and we just keep cultivating, our own inner connection. Okay? So I'm going to end with a little personal story on this one as well. And this was back in my 20s, and I think I was in college at the time. And I was going through a really hard time and really feeling really lost and lonely. And so I was trying to find friend groups to hang out with. And an acquaintance of mine suggested that I go hang out with some friends that he had. And they were very much into, they liked sewing, like creating costumes, which was something that I, aspired to do. But this was like anime costumes, and not really an interest of mine. So I didn't really have any interest in making that kind of thing. But I was like, well, I'll go ahead and give it a try. And I did. And the whole time I was really very, whatever other people's interests were, like that was what I kind of latched onto. Like I just really sort of took on whatever interest or persona of the person that I was interacting with. For me, it was like this sort of safety mechanism. Like it kept me safe in my world, because everything was so scary and, stressful, and, everything produced anxiety in me. So it was almost like this sort of safeguard that I had built in my mind as a safeguard, but really wasn't serving me in a lot of ways. So, I start hanging out with this group, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. I love this. And I love anime and all these things. And, then they invited me to this anime convention. And of course I was like, oh, okay, they're inviting me. They want to hang out with me. So I got to go. Even though I really, in my heart, absolutely did not want to go. Like I was like, oh, I've got to go to this convention for like 3 or 4 days. It was down in Baltimore. So I had to ride down with them. And let me tell you, it was just like, I'm not saying they were bad people. They weren't. They were nice people, but there was probably not on any level that we clicked. And, a lot of that was probably because I was, being dishonest with them. I wasn't honestly telling them like, hey, I like what you guys do. I appreciate what you guys do, but this isn't really an interest of mine. So maybe we can hang out in other ways, right? And allow for that to develop, because I'm sure they might have had other interests besides that, and we could have connected on a different level, right? But there was no opportunity for that, because I was really, out of fear, I was just like creating this sort of fake persona that I presented to them. And so we get down to this convention, and then like on the ride up, it was like anything that could go wrong was like going wrong. Like the car broke down in the middle of Delaware, and this police officer had to like bring us to the hotel, and he's like, don't leave your room. It's not a safe area. I was like, oh my God, I just want to get home. So it was a really long trip. And, to be honest with you, did I learn my lesson from that trip? No. I continued to live in that manner with other people, in my interactions with other people for quite a long time. So, we don't always get things immediately in our life. So I'll just say that there. But that was one experience in my own life of dishonesty, that I wanted to share here, because it really, to this day is just stands out as probably one of the bigger sort of examples in my own life. So if this is something that you're sort of working through, then, you might be wondering to yourself, like, well, what do I do now? How do I begin to work through this, right? Because it can seem really daunting. I know for me, when I finally was open to the realization of all the ways that I was sort of creating dishonesty in my life, it just tackling it felt so scary. And, so I just want to kind of offer here the steps that I sort of began to take, and, maybe offer that to you as a way for you to begin to work on this as well. But the one really big, clear first step is awareness, right? Bringing awareness to it. Like if we're not even open to acknowledging that we're being dishonest, right? We don't like to feel like we're being dishonest people because we want to be honest people, but ultimately we have to acknowledge that we have some dishonesty present in us in order to begin to move forward to work on it. And without shame or blame or, feeling bad about ourselves, because I can tell you probably every person in the world has some level of dishonesty within them, right? It's a very human characteristic. And it might just present for all of us in a different way, and that's okay. So once we have the awareness, the thing that I did next is I teamed up with my partner to let them know that this is something I feel, that I've been struggling with, and sharing my feelings about it and letting them know that moving forward, I'm working towards, being more honest with people. And so when I run into these situations, or even in my interactions with them, if I feel it being stirred up, then I want to go back. They're a safe person that I can go back and say, hey, I was feeling that I was feeling, that sort of anxious feeling in my chest about sharing something with you. And so I was withholding information, but I would like to, since you're helping me sort of to support me through working through this, I want to go ahead and share what I'm honestly feeling right now. And, or if, saying yes or no, like, I said yes, but I realized after I said yes that I really felt that the answer was no. And so I want to kind of come back and change my answer, right? It's okay to change our answer if we've accidentally given the wrong one that doesn't resonate with us. And so this sort of partner that we team up with, they help us to sort of build that muscle, build our courage muscle so that we can begin to do that in other instances with other people, right? And ultimately, if you set the intention, right, clear intention, that you're ready to transform this and, open your heart to being honest, showing up honestly in your life, then, things will begin to sort of go in that direction. And, it's not about this like big booming transformation like that, right? I always say like the small steady steps in our life really bring about the biggest and the most lasting change and transformation in our life. So yeah, so you can do it. Keep going, keep healing, and don't be afraid to go within. I appreciate y'all joining me today. And if you enjoyed this content, feel free to give a like and subscribe. I appreciate the support. If you want to follow along more closely with my work, then I have a monthly newsletter that I put out, and you can sign up for that. If you want one-to-one healing support on your journey, then I do offer shamanic healing services. And also on my website, I have my blog, which shares a little bit more detail about my own personal healing journey. And I also have some free resources over there as well. So you can check that out at thespiritwithin.com, and I'll put all the links for everything in the description below. Until we see each other again, y'all take care. Bye, guys.